Hello and welcome back to the Cookie Jar Golf Podcast. I am Tom Mills and today we are doing part 2 of the tour memories. So we pretty much finished the Highlands. So far we've got through Castle Stewart and then played Brora and Dornoch and head our way down to play Renaissance. So this podcast picks up where the last one stopped. So if you haven't listened to the previous one, please do check it out. But this is us picking up from where we got to Renaissance.
Watch this.
We got ourselves over to Renaissance to meet Malcolm. Scottish Open venue number 2 of the tour.
Got there a little bit ahead of schedule, didn't we?
Yeah. The time was smiling. Hadn't reminded Malcolm that we were going to be there at that time, so we just sort of stood awkwardly in the car park, just being like, "This looks good again."
Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah. Walked into the clubhouse, and it's just pretty remarkable, isn't it? When you the feeling you get, as you say, it's very hard to articulate, but the feeling you get when you walk in that clubhouse. And actually go into the locker room and you're like, wow, like, members' names on every locker.
I've never seen a swimming pool in a locker room before, have you?
That stood out as well.
I've seen some golf clubs with pools of water in their locker room, but that's usually as a result of a faulty shower head or something like that. This was a legit swimming pool in the locker room. I thought it was
more of a
opulence
plunge
of a
pool
level.
or jacuzzi. I mean,
No,
this
I
isn't the
dunno.
place where you're going to go do 25-metre breaststroke. Like,
No. Well,
I know you like your hyperbole, Sam, but you're not going to go.
Okay, well, it was essentially a warm dip pool, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Whichever
But still
way, it was a
very
level of
appealing.
opulence I've not seen in a clubhouse before. I don't know about you boys. I was
Open fire, just raging as you came in. It was just
frighteningly good.
And you know what? Really welcoming staff as well, who just, even though we got there just a few minutes before Malcolm, we kind of went in and just sort of dropped our stuff in the locker room and had a quick look around the pro shop for some merch, as you do. They just were like really, really kind of welcoming and
Super
friendly. There was
chilled,
no
yeah.
stuffiness or...
No clipboard guy at the end
Yeah,
of the road.
as you'd
Even though it
expect,
was
yeah.
quite intimidating,
Yeah.
kind of massive sort of wrought iron gates, it felt like a very friendly place.
Which
I
you
don't know
don't
if I
often
told
get
you this.
in
I was
those kind
chatting
of
to
places.
the pro when I was like, so they got there and we just started chatting. I think you boys were faffing around somewhere. And I was just, we're doing some filming. Oh, cool. Where have you been? This is what we're doing. We're going to go play Musselburgh. We're going to do it with Hickories. He's I played in the Hickory World Championships last year. And I was like, really? And we're just, this guy, he's just so friendly. He's like, this is what you got to do with Hickories. And that was an experience on its own. But the whole place I thought was brilliant. And the course was lit. I mean...
I hate that word.
You boys, this was the only really one-sided match we had.
We don't need to talk about the result.
I was just working on a
Me
bit
and
of...
Malcolm in particular played lights out golf, gets on the first tee. Maybe it's like a little running joke he has with people he plays with.
The first
Once you
tee
play off
also-
Malcolm, 8, about 4 under gross through 12 holes.
Yeah,
Cheers,
yeah.
boys. Thanks for the game.
yeah, hustled.
Buried.
Yeah. And actually, I mean, Renaissance was a course, again, in fact, it was the opposite to Dornoch in that I'd heard a lot about it, but I didn't actually have much in the way of expectations because for one reason or another, I was just like, yeah, I've heard this is a really, really nice course and it's obviously a new build. It's Doak's only
Quiet and
sort
wild.
That was what I was really excited
new
about.
course in the UK, so to speak. Obviously he's done renovation work at Woodall and a couple of other places. But yeah, I kind of went there just genuinely not knowing what to expect. And I thought it was awesome, like a lovely course to play, visually a little intimidating off the tees, and it's probably the kind of place that if you played there a lot, you'd know your way around it a lot better. I think playing it with Malcolm was definitely helpful first time round, but the green complexes were some of the most sort of heavily contoured and tricky I've seen. I mean, I hit a really good drive for me up the 5th, 6th hole, I think, that short par 4 that brings you back to the clubhouse.
Yeah, 6th.
Probably 20 yards short of the green and had no shot.
Yeah, literally no shot was there. And I remember going up the 3rd hole with Malcolm and he's talking about the course design because, obviously discussed it with him on the previous podcast and with him there, that he designed it at Malcolm's pub, the Ducks Inn at Aberlady, fantastic place. And he said that when we were talking about it, he had to throttle back some of the contours on the greens. And I was like, Malcolm, I've never played a golf course where there's too much contouring on greens.
Apart from the castle at St Andrews.
Yeah, apart from the castle at St Andrews and that place.
Yeah.
And it was, they were nuts. That short par 4, the fifth, like you say, short, you were just toast.
I was in the fairway.
There were crazy level of undulations in play, which actually made it really exciting.
But they were undulations in the right way. They were right misses and wrong misses. They were correct misses on the green. Like on that fifth, it was that you could be as left as you wanted of the green. You couldn't be as right because it was just destroyed on the right hand side of the green.
And you learned that, didn't you? As you went round.
You do, yeah. And I think there is a remarkable bit, having played Woodall Spa, which Tom Doakes had a lot of influence in the renovation of that I commented to Sam on the way around the bunkering, which I thought was phenomenal around Renaissance. It's very, very reminiscent of the bunkering around Woodall, and I thought it was just a really, really quality golf course. And the first sort of 9 holes, you don't really see the sea. It's all sort of, you play them sort of around the clubhouse in a sort of cloverleaf shape.
It's a shame because the game was really over by that stage as well, really.
Yeah. I mean, but we played it a couple of weeks after the Scottish Open. Probably 2 weeks, 3 weeks maybe?
Yeah, 3 weeks, I think.
And how the boys got around there, because the rough was brutal.
And they were playing from
But the
back.
fairways were wide.
Yeah, you had room to play at, didn't you?
Yeah.
I'd say it was a little bit more penal than maybe a Castle Stewart. So, you know, I'd have said there was a little bit more trouble lurking. There was a few drives where what would play at somewhere like that wouldn't have played a Renaissance. You had to have the long game a little bit more dialed in, I thought.
Renaissance, I came away from thinking, like, I did hit a couple of poor drives, admittedly, but I came away from that being like, oh my God, my wedge game is just like not good enough, because I just didn't feel comfortable hitting wedges into a lot of those greens where your landing area was probably like 15 feet in depth. And if you were either side of that window, you'd be miles away from the pin and have a really tricky up and down. It never felt like it's either like you had a good chance for birdie or you were going to struggle to make par.
And that's 64
there were no
by
real
Aaron
solid
Wright.
pars you could make.
It's so good, isn't it? When you look at it round there, when you think he's playing that at about 7,200, something like that, with wind, with conditions, under the gun, what a knock. Best halfway house of the trip.
The 9th and 10th holes leading up to the halfway house are spectacular.
Dramatic,
as well.
yeah.
They're fantastic holes.
So there's that stuff with the lighthouse, isn't there? So Malcolm was telling us that was it Robert Louis Stevenson,
Treasure Island,
who wrote Treasure Island, that lighthouse that you can see off the left-hand side of 10th hole. That's kind of
That's
based.
kind of inspiration.
That's where Tom nearly got the drone stuck out there, I think, wasn't it? It was so far out, and then the wind was
about-
I
back.
can't wait to see that footage.
If anyone from the Civil Aviation Authority is listening, it stayed within line of sight and within 500 metres of me.
DJI coming back on that.
Mill's just like,
Tom asked me to fly
into
this thing in. I was like, how far is this thing? I genuinely had no idea where the thing was in the sky. You'd sent it so far away. I thought we were getting some shots of Cairn in Ireland or something at one point, or Norway.
Again, this is all conjecture, CAA.
But
did you just say I thought this thing was going to be flying into Ireland?
at one point, or Norway. I caveat. I recovered it.
Slightly the wrong side of the coast. Yeah. Anyway,
But the halfway house.
Woke insights for the cookie shop.
Halfway house. I think I could have just driven out there and just sat there for 4 hours. And stunning view. Nice little glass shed. Help yourself to beers, soft drinks.
Honesty box,
How good were the bloody pies?
The pies.
The pies were good. And it was nice because it was the first time I hadn't eaten a sandwich for a meal as well at that stage of the trip. So,
Warm steak pie.
it was just a joy. And it was story time with Malcolm, wasn't it? So we got a little hole in one board in the halfway house. And is it Jerry Savardi's wife that got the first hole in one?
I thought it was Jerry's brother's wife, or so Jerry's sister-in-law. But there was some family.
It was basically one of those Sheila or something. I can't remember. I might be generalising. And you've got the board up there with everyone else that's had a hole in one. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. And there's not that many names on there. And actually, that is a good segue to the next. Correct. And then we got to the next tee, the 11th, which is pretty intricate par 3. Lots of slopes around the green, but not too long. It's about 140, isn't it? And I just stood up and I was like, I mean, by then we had you Buckley under the pressure. I mean, it was shaky hands time on the next green. But I called it. I said, this thing's going in the hole. And to be fair, I nearly canned it.
But you didn't. Can we just clarify that it didn't go in the hole?
Did you make birdie?
I can't remember.
He didn't even make.
I flagged that thing. Okay, I was so convinced. I'd never something came over where I was never
because you won it in a part with a par, didn't you?
Can I just start? We couldn't the contouring and the leveling of this hole. You can't see the pin.
No,
like you couldn't see the base of the pin. No. So he's there looking at a pin. We could see the flag.
It was inaccessible.
The
pin location
on a slope that goes away from you, right to the front of the green, and he's looking and going, "Gonna can this." It was like. It was impossible to stick within 6 feet.
But I knew when it landed.
Yeah. Some hit a great shot to 12 feet and 2-putt for his par.
Yeah. But anyway, and then obviously had that and we played a bit of cross-country golf because I think we were struggling with light a little. But then that sunset as well coming in, that was probably the most stunning skyline, I think, of the trip. That kind of burnt orange sunset that we had. It was just a magical evening, and then
had a good night.
Yeah, had a good night of Barstool
Stories.
putting. So talk just Barstool putting, actually. So we get back to the Ducks in Aberlady.
Good vodcast.
Aberlady.
With more detail on that, actually, just went up on our YouTube channel. So
oh yeah, of course. So encourage people to check that out.
Check that out. Yeah, we
live from the Ducks.
Cover the same ground too much, other than the fact that Malcolm is a fantastic bloke and someone who is definitely worth getting in touch with if you're in that neck of the woods.
100%. And obviously, we then had a bit of bite to eat, and then the evening, the Barstool putting comes out. How tough is it?
Impossible.
Yeah, I wouldn't say impossible. Nothing.
I don't believe anyone's name up there is real. I think it's all fabrication.
It's all just a ruse.
It's just a ruse. The whole game is impossible.
We came close. I think we all probably had a couple of shots in there that actually came. In fact, James Woods, Starmie 69, gave it a very, very good run.
Yeah, he did.
It's pace control.
And you were going with the Jack Nicklaus motion by the end, which
plays the crowd a little bit.
Which will no doubt feature in the tour film. But you pulled Jack Nicklaus, Golden Bears cap off the side, and putting with that sort of heavily hunched, crooked left arm.
Yeah, no arm or shoulder movement, all in the wrist.
And at one point, you started turning your jaw sort of like
just trying to get the neck tilt, the Golden Bear neck tilt in place. Really,
but it was really hard because you have to get that ball essentially up on the balance. Yeah. And then it has to almost stop dead weight at the very end of the backboard. Otherwise, it won't have gone far enough to tip the balance. And if it hits it with any force at the back of the board, it'll just rebound it back down.
And you got to do it from 4 feet in the air.
And I thought I gave it a good run for 3 hours, and I thought I'd get one in, but
apparently not.
No, next time we'll have to go and make amends, I think. But that we'll have some footage of that on the YouTube, won't we? Which will reveal just how difficult it is.
That going up, but a good night, good stories with Malcolm, and it's good to see James Woods again. And off to Gullane.
Sunday morning, first tee, Gullane 1.
I'm going to put it out there, I absolutely love Gullane.
You really liked it, didn't you?
Yeah.
I've played 2 before, and I couldn't say I could squeeze much between the 2. So you've only played 1. I played Gullane 2. They both feel very similar golf courses, actually.
Yeah.
I've heard that people say there's not much between them.
Well, there are a few holes from 2, aren't there, that are used in that composite for the Scottish Open. Maybe that's more of a logistical thing necessarily than a quality of the course thing. But yeah.
It's less obvious though. So like I came away feeling there's no gimmicks there. It just felt like pure honest links. But you really loved it. So
for me, I think, don't get me wrong, like we had spectacular views on every single course we played up until that point. But walking around Gullane, it's like, whereas Castle Stewart, you were in this sort of, you're playing in a valley, and you can't see another hole from another, but you could see the Murray Firth and all that, and it was all stunning. Like, it was all absolute. You can't really put a cigarette paper between all these places in terms of views, but Gullane, you just can see everything. I mean, from points of Gullane, like you could probably see
it's 360, isn't it?
20, 30 miles or something like that. You know, it's just the views were incredible.
Yeah.
And it was proper. When you play links, I feel, I don't play enough links to want to play links in mill pond conditions. I want to go there, get beaten up, be shown how shit I am.
Sadism.
Well, because I don't. If I played it every week, you know, I'd probably want to calm conditions and stuff. But I want to go there and get beaten up and show
it's
how
nice to know what it's like with the wind.
And the wind absolutely destroyed me at Gullane. Like I don't have a shot into direct wind. I don't mind it off the left or right, but I don't have shot into direct wind, and I was just getting brutalized. And I just walked away with a higher level of enjoyment.
Yeah, views are stunning, and it's just a classy place, isn't it? It's not like oh my God, the greens are absolutely outrageous, or off the tee, it's just so stunning, or the bunkering's a masterclass. There's none of that. It's just a very, very good, honest links golf course. And yeah, I mean, the views, like, obviously improve it. The bit that will probably live with me more than anywhere would have been, we played about 13 holes, I think, or 12 holes. And there was a par five. Was it? And I think all of us binned our drive left. That was the toughest hole of the day by a mile. And for the 12 holes we'd played, pretty much all of them, we hadn't seen a group behind us, because as a 3-ball, we were running around that place, really.
Yeah, just for context, we played the whole 18 holes, filming, getting the drone up, and actually putting in some decent golf, some stable for golf.
You were 2 over gross, weren't you? So
yeah,
round about that.
So went deep coming back.
In 3 hours and 15 minutes.
15,
so 3 hours and 15 for 18 holes, droning, filming,
walking,
playing some decent golf.
Yeah, ran a long championship length. Well, so we spent what felt like at the round 20% of it looking for these golf balls on the 12th hole, the par 5, whatever, with the concrete pillars and stuff on the right. We get down there, and then you go up to that par 3 tee right at the back, the champion, stunning teeing grounds place, par 3. And as we're there, a group of ladies are charging round, doing their usual thing, no practice swings, just walk straight up to it and hit it again. And then what did they say to you, Bruce, in your best accent?
We walked off the 13th tee box. And, we kind of crossed over the 12th green. I hit sort of poor 4-iron or 5-iron up the left, so I'm not in the best headspace anyway. Made a very poor score on 12, and I just want to get out in front of it and just kind of clear my head. And I get accosted by this lady who says, "You're going to have to hurry up. You're going way too slow." So that was literally her opening gambit there. There was no, what are you up to? How are things?
Yeah,
you're doing a bit of filming work for the club. Was that a drone? It was literally straight into, "You're going to have to hurry up. You're going way too slow, or we're coming through." And it's like, that's very direct. And I 100%, we've spoken about it at length on this podcast about, slow play is a blight on the game. It does really undermine other people's enjoyment. Professional games don't set a good example, etc. But when you're playing at a pace for a 3-ball of 3 hours, 15 minutes, let's say, we added some VAT onto it and we were 3 hours 30 or 3 hours 40,
Still
dare I say, which we weren't. Yeah. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And if you're playing around a golf where you think it's unacceptable to take anything north of 3 hours to play, then I think that it's getting out of hand. And I think that's actually just as, you're just as culpable in undermining people's enjoyment of the game. So, yeah, it goes back to what I mentioned earlier about Brora and how welcoming that was as a place.
Yeah, the sheep don't have a go at you, Brora.
Well, it's interesting.
There was no one there. It was just like, we're going around, we're filming these clubs, we're enjoying ourselves as well. We all love golf, we enjoy playing it. Don't expect it to get treated like royalty or any different to anyone else. Just a little bit of an understanding of kind of what we're doing and the fact that we're filming as well.
Or
and
just
actually
that we're playing
at a good pace.
on its own merit.
Yeah.
Cameras or no cameras, 3 hours 15, we're playing at a speed where if there was another, I would say that if there were 95% of 3-balls in front of it, they'd have been getting pushed along by us. We were playing plenty quick golf.
The only reason we didn't have someone in front of us is on the first hole let a foursome through. So there was the only person in front of us was a foursome. So we weren't ever going to catch them up because it was just never going to happen. But we had some space in front of us because the foursome went through, and then we were our 3-ball. But to give it to some context, these ladies were approaching the green behind us, so they couldn't have possibly at that point had to wait on a shot.
No.
They were just
They'd
anticipating.
still have to get up to the summit of the next
They
tee.
were just anticipating that they would have to wait.
And we just buried our
point.
irons all onto the green from about 200 into the wind, I think, hadn't we? So we were. Anyway, but let's not dwell. I mean, we then.
But I think that actually, sorry, we will dwell on it for just 20 seconds longer.
I am not done.
Because, there's another sort of addendum to that story later on. But I think that is a problem for golf. It is perceived as this stuffy game that can be a bit unwelcoming at times. And, we had a fantastic trip by and large, but just, I think for people who weren't as passionate about the game as us, going to a club that they were visiting and paying good money for, that would have just been a massive turn off, just to be accosted by a few ladies or one lady really, and just say, you must hurry up because you're not playing at an adequate pace.
I happened to call my father at some point since the trip, and I said to him,
Dad,
Daddy. I told him a story that happened in Kilspindie,
right,
but
Dad?
it might as well be the same story because it is.
we're gonna get onto it as well.
But I told him this story, and his response is, he's never played golf in his life, my father. And his response was, yeah, but that's golf course people for you, isn't it? And I'm like, no, that's not what golf course people are like. I've met thousands and thousands of people who play golf, and these people are the outliers, but it's the thing that sticks in your mind and the thing that people sort of think that's what golf is like, and it's not like that.
No, and I think it's almost like an arrogance of sorts. And I don't want to be ageist here, but it's something that maybe is a more acute problem with slightly older generations who do play quick and probably haven't had the example of tour golf set for them that people our age perhaps have. But it's just that arrogance of like, my time is really important, and I'm gonna set the pace for the course, and if you're not adhering to that pace, then you're in the wrong. I just think like, if you're taking time out of your day to play golf, whether it's 3 hours and 10 minutes or 3 hours 40, or dare I say it, 4 hours, that's not a cardinal sin. When you start getting into 4.5, 5, etc., we can all agree that's far too long, and glacial pace is horrible. But we weren't doing that, so
we haven't,
point still stands.
What we haven't commented on, which before we move on, is is Ross's presence, who was with us, which was
Ross Duncan, great guy. Ross
Duncan, who walked around with us and just gave us loads of information about the course. Member there, really good guy to have around with us.
Could I just make an observation? This pod's, by the way, getting way out of control in terms of
this is
length.
a two-parter.
But what's interesting about golf in Scotland, now maybe it's because, yes, we were doing a trip in partnership with Scotland Home of Golf, or Scotland, and maybe it's because we were doing a tour in partnership with Scotland where golf began. But the number of marketing people and people with a vested interest in the marketing of golf in Scotland seems huge. Like, his role was essentially, he's freelance working marketing with some different golf clubs. He's previously been with Scotland Golf. He's there in the interest of developing golf in East Lothian. You just don't have these people in England, or not as, certainly nowhere near as many. And they're all great guys. Ross is a super advocate for Gullane. Like, we had a great morning with him, didn't we? I mean, he would spend most of the time just taking pictures of my sort of steep outside the line swing and a few nice shots on the way. But we just had a blast with him. He's a really cool guy to spend time with. Just really enjoyable guy to come out. And that's for me one of the tour. That was one of the best parts. Actually, was kind of the people we met on the way and spending time with, because it would have just been a kind of smorgasbord of golf courses with us three turning up, and actually the people that kind of came out on the rounds with us, which is pretty much everywhere we went, with the exception of maybe Castle Stewart, was pretty special, I thought.
And then probably for me, moving on, kind of the moment of the tour. So,
Gullane 4.
A day before, Bruce had pulled a few strings and managed to secure us
I got in touch with a friend, if that's what you mean. Yeah, we can make it seem very mystical and ornate.
But managed to get us to play a foursome on Muirfield, which Sam and I have never done, and was very, very high on the list for Sam that we knew about. So you told me, right, this is the situation. We're going to play Muirfield, but let's not tell Sam.
We tried to stitch you up with the old course, hadn't really worked. You guys tried to stitch me up on Castle Stewart, hadn't worked. So we thought, right, third time lucky. This guy is just going to leap like a salmon at this thing. He's going to just be 6 feet in the air.
Well, we went into Gullane for a sandwich, and I remember sitting in the car because I think I was just catching up on the ludicrous number of red icons on social media at the time. And you guys went in and got a wrap, and we sat in your car, Bruce, and ate the sandwich. And Tom was sort of being I don't know. He just seemed almost delirious over a sandwich. He was sort of like whistling away.
It was a good rap.
Here's your cat. Isn't this great rap? Isn't this brilliant? I thought, what the hell? What's the matter? Have you on the happy pills all of a sudden since
Gullane?
Gullane?
It was very peculiar because
and I thought something's odd here.
All tour, I'd been extremely happy to let Sam drive me around, but I was like, no, I am driving. Get away.
I was quite happy to drive to Loughness because I wanted you to do the A roll. I wanted you to get some nice footage driving through Gullane town centre. So something nice of like the first tee and all that sort of setup. And then Tom was like, no, I'm driving, get in the car, just shoot some A-roll. Which in normal language basically means run the camera and just sort of point it out the window and see and get some cool stuff. Fine. And we're following you coming out of Gullane. And I was like, he's going the wrong way. He's going way too slow. We're going the wrong way. Loughness is the bottom of town. And I'm getting like increasingly angry with you in the passenger seat.
He's not getting angry. Oh, I'm really angry. He was furious.
Hurling profanities.
He was screaming at me. Why the fuck won't you turn around?
Ridiculous.
No, you were screaming.
Absolutely ridiculous.
And I was like, mate, can you just please point the camera out the window? Because apparently it's really good driving to Loughness. And he's like, turn left here. Oh, for fuck's sake. Why won't you listen to me? Oh, my God. And he's like, and we have proof of this, by the way, because it's on film. And he was screaming at me. And then Bruce, coming out of Gullane towards the east, indicates left.
When we got to the top of town and you just said to me, will you just get the camera recording, please? And I thought, I've driven past it. I know exactly what's here. And you
but you didn't know
that.
because your reaction is totally incongruent with that. Your reaction on the camera
I
is...
then got excited. Like,
Yeah.
And obviously you see the little sign for grey walls and...
indicated and pulled in left and it was special, wasn't it?
Yeah, I knew it was the surprise element as well. Like, obviously, you guys... So, I've always wanted to play there. Yeah. So, I don't know where we start with that one, really. But what was really nice as well at that point in the tour was actually no cameras. Just put the cameras away, go out and enjoy.
Yeah.
18 holes. And playing foursomes as well was just
I think we knocked 1 hour 10 in for 9 holes, didn't we?
Yeah. Well, I remember looking at the watch, thinking we were like 55 minutes there, stood on the 9th tee.
And it was quality golf. It wasn't like we were just picking up and walking on. There was some scoring going on. And
but doing foursomes actually, because I wouldn't want that to seem incongruent or contradictory to what we said earlier about slow play or playing too quickly and having people accost you for it. That actually, we were still scoring. We were just having an enjoyable kind of foursome. But A, it was foursomes. And B, Muirfield's a course that probably facilitates quick play in a way that Gullane probably doesn't. And
it had a very
special
aura, though, didn't it? Yeah. So, obviously, close friend of yours, Bruce, Robin, lovely gentleman, isn't he, from St Andrews, like smashing guy. I've met him before. Going through those gates, it's a really imposing place to walk through, I think. I think we're lucky to be going and playing some really good golf courses on this. You would get there and you could feel it's a very, very imposing place when you walk through that massive sort of Gothic wrought iron gate. But actually, Robin's a smashing guy. Everyone we met there, the starter and everything, were really, really nice people. At every point you felt welcome to the place. And I think I think a lot of clubs are misunderstood then in that sense. The other thing I'd say, I just thought it was a totally different feeling in the air. Now, maybe that's because I'd built it up, but you looked out across it. The clubhouse is almost like manicured to within an inch of its life.
You can see it from every part of the course pretty much, can't you?
Yeah. And you just look out and across this relatively, compared to some of the topography of places like Castle Shear and stuff, a relatively uninspiring landscape. It's not the most dramatic. There's no sort of like Birkdale-sized towering dunes up the side of the fairways. There's no, it doesn't look gimmicky or tricked up or anything. It just looks like a really good, honest golf course in front of you. But then that way it plays, where you do that sort of counter or anti-clockwise motion on the front nine, and then you sort of play through within in the middle, is ingenious. And you're playing on different winds on every hole. There's none of this sort of 9 holes into your face and 9 holes down it. It's just insanely good golf course.
And I think if you compare the fact that we had played some very, very good golf courses up until that point, the greens at Muirfield were just...
What did you say to me, Bruce, about the Open?
Yeah, I think it's true. I mean, a friend who's a Muirfield member just said, they could hold an Open with a week's notice there, and I could see why, like, playing that again. It's just such a brilliant layout. I mean, I'd go so far as to say it's my favourite course that I've ever played. Everything, you can see everything out in front of you. There's no gimmicks. There's no real blind shots, with the exception of maybe the 11th and the 6th tee shots. But even then, you kind of know where you're going. It's just a really, as you say, honest, fair test of golf, and immaculately maintained. I mean, you know, there's such a huge array of tee boxes that you can play off. You get different winds. As you say, the routing is such that the wind's always kind of changing on you a bit, changing its orientation, etc. The undulations around the greens, like there's so many different options with pins and tee boxes, and that's why, I think that expression probably is correct. Like, they could have a major championship there and not need to bend over backwards to get it ready, because it's such a brilliant test of golf.
I think the moment of the day for me was when Bruce hits a drive on
five, the par 5, yeah.
That is so ridiculous that his partner, it's a 520-yard par 5. His partner had to take a picture of where he was.
You got that thing going
because his
there.
partner, for the second shot of the hole, had 130 yards left.
119.
119 yards on a 520-yard par 5.
Well, you were hitting it great. Both you and Robin, to be fair, all of us played really good golf, which is always nice when you're there.
Yeah,
because
that definitely adds to it,
first tee
doesn't it?
nerves, like, I don't get them that often. And we played a lot of golf by then, and got on the first tee and thought, I actually want to hit this properly. And it was nice playing foursomes because you were playing for your other guy.
Yeah, you guys started great, didn't you?
We nearly drained birdie, didn't we, on the first hole? And I think on the whole, like, you and Robin were only a couple over. Me and Tom were a few more.
In a stiff wind as well.
Yeah, definitely. The rulings were cool. So I'd not done this before. You hadn't done it. I'm guessing you've played Dalmar before.
Yeah.
So Dalmar rulings in match play essentially means that you can play it off scratch or with shots, it doesn't really matter. But when you get 3 down in the match, the team that's 3 down get a shot on every single hole until they get back within 1 down in the match. And I thought it's quite a nice way to play a competitive match, but also not being in that situation. Like, good God, I mean, you could have done with Dalmar around Renaissance, you boys, because you were
Still don't think it would have
you were
helped.
about 6 down after 7, but
Keeps it competitive.
It did.
Doesn't
It kept it really competitive because we got down to 3 down, and I think we did get back into the game on our own merits there. But it was a nice safety cushion that meant that we wouldn't have all of a sudden been shaking hands on the 12th. And the other ruling around East Lothian rules was fantastic as well, actually, because particularly Muirfield, where it's so hard off the tee, really. Like, I think you and me hit like 2 wipes on that round.
I hit one on 15.
One each.
And then so we both hit one on 15, didn't we? And then did you maybe hit one other on 12 or something?
I hit one on 14 as well.
And East Lothian,
right? Okay, yeah.
That basically means you can take a drop back to the nearest point of sort of playable stuff, so sort of the edge of the fairway, doesn't it?
Kind of level with where your drive would
with a
finish.
shot penalty. So you're then hitting your 3rd shot, but if you do that, then you accept that the best you can do with that shot penalty is halve the hole.
Yeah.
Or you can reload and take a 2-shot penalty as you would with a lost ball.
But from that point in the fairway.
With a shot penalty back on the tee, but you can win the hole. So it's quite a nice way of keeping people moving around the course as well, because unless you're hitting it pretty straight, most golfers are going to be losing golf balls around there fairly regularly, and I just thought that was a nice touch as well.
Yeah. What do you think, Mills?
I thought Muirfield was I think it was a cut above any course I've ever played. I just thought I was so taken aback by it. So kind of Robin to host us and to have us there. And I've said it before about rounds on this trip and like that. I will remember that my day at Muirfield for a very, very long time. It was very special.
Yeah, and actually just going back to your point there, Sam, about there being an aura about the place or maybe some preconceptions that aren't particularly fair, those points you made about Dalmire and East Lothian, I think that we need more of that in the game of golf, because just you don't need to always go out and score and play your own ball and take a card in hand and hole out religiously. You can play foursomes and really enjoy yourself. You can play Dalmire and East Lothian rules as well and like really enjoy the game. It's still golf. Not everything has to be stroke play, and not everything has to be, kind of rigidly conforming to maybe some of the traditional ways of playing the game. And I think Muirfield does that really well. It has good kind of quick rounds of golf, but that aren't excessively excessively fast. They're just sort of naturally quick because of the format and the routing. And yeah, I think it's just doing wonderful stuff for the game, really.
I think for me, I mean, playing foursomes didn't detract for my enjoyment a single jot. If anything, like I played with Sam and he hits the ball better than me, so it probably made my experience a bit better because I felt like I had more of a hand in the scoring when, perhaps if I was with my own ball, the scoring wouldn't have been so good. So
I think you hit the ball
and
great.
it goes round. Well. You get round so quickly. We would not have got 18 holes in because the clocks had changed by this point. They changed that day, so there was no way we could have got our own ball around Muirfield in time.
2.5 hours flick it around Muirfield for an afternoon,
and it was just brilliant.
Yeah.
And
the only downside to playing so quickly or such a good pace is that
you're out of the door as fast as you
and you don't have enough chance to soak
like
up.
I've been there 5 minutes.
You could eat your dinner out there, really.
But back to ducks.
Yeah, back to the ducks. And pretty chilled. And I think by then we were just like on an absolute high, weren't we, of tour. We were just absolutely loving life and
gratitude permeating.
Yeah, I mean, the next day then quite excited because Kilspindie's obviously a course that I don't think any of us had played.
No, but had high expectations of, didn't we, going in?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I heard it. There's a lot of stuff talked about it being a relatively short golf course.
But Malcolm had said that night, didn't he?
It's a par 69 and it's about 5,600 or so. So if you price in 200 yards for par, to get it to a par 72 would probably mean you're playing about a 6,200 yard course. So yeah, it's slightly on the shorter side, and there's a lot of, I would say, half par golf holes, but it wasn't crazy. So I think it comes back to the original point of the stuff that golf clubs can do that costs them no money is the welcome, and the first impressions when you get to places is so important, isn't it? And it was it's people, it's not a golf club, it's not a reflection on the club or the place itself, but there felt like an unhealthy obsession with rules, I would say, at Kilspindie. I loved the golf course. I had an amazing day there. I would encourage everyone who listens to the podcast and watches our film to go and play Kilspindie if they are in East Lothian, because you will not be disappointed. I would say that it did have an unhealthy level of obsession with some rules or some things, and you just got that vibe. You got that vibe. So the fact we'd come off Muirfield at what I think people have a preconceived idea that it's stuffy, it's rule-based, it's very strict, it's not welcoming. I got a totally different vibe of that at Muirfield, but I got it at Kilspindie, if that makes sense. And I think that's a bit of a shame, because I'm sure that's not how the club would want to portray themselves. I'm sure that's not what 99% of the club is about. But there was kind of an immediate, this is members' times, and by the way, boys, if you're going out now, you cannot hold people up. And we got out into the course, and I looked across, and it shares the board with Craigie Law, where there's another 18-hole golf course.
But
so
only a few holes
to the eye,
run
it looks
nearby.
like there's lots of stuff. But I looked across the links at one point and thought, I can't remember playing a golf course where I've seen so many people on a golf course.
As at Kilspindie?
Yeah.
I
couldn't get my breath how many people were out there.
And we were waiting on a lot of tee boxes because short par fours that we could all reach. And it was like, well, we're not going to tee off and threaten to hit the group ahead. And then you had people...
It's a typical...
The sequencing on the tee sheet, I think, put itself in jeopardy.
Added to which we had a bad welcome, which Mills will talk more about.
So let's start from the beginning. We probably felt a little bit unwelcome on the tee at Kilspindie. Probably more because of a lack of communication between channels. I mean, we were given courtesy of the course. We were allowed to play during members' times, which was very kind of them, and it facilitated us being able to complete what was our trip. But obviously, some members weren't aware we were there, and then we were questioned on the tee as to if we were members and why we were there. Now, I can completely understand that. If I was a member at a golf club and there were some members' times, I probably too would be a bit miffed if there were some people turning up and teeing off. Would I confront them? Probably not. Would I stick my head in the pro shop and find out what are these boys doing? Oh, they're doing some filming. Okay, I get now why they're here. There are ways of going about things that immediately put us on edge. Now, if you ever do go play Kilspindie, the first 5 or 6 holes are genuinely breathtaking. They just run along the coast. They're fantastic.
I didn't like the first.
They're gorgeous golf holes.
Shanking one.
He hit a hosel, but no, the first a nice hole.
But the entirety of the first few holes, what were we talking about? Just the welcome we got on the first tee. Like, we weren't thinking about filming. We weren't thinking about playing.
We were running, weren't we? We were running a bit. That's fine. Like, you know, it's not. I'm
Well, it wasn't
not
really
looking
fine
for
though, was it?
no. I'm
Given
not
that we
looking
were
for
there to
sympathy
film.
about our own golf. So I'm
But
not
we were there
looking
to
for,
film the course.
definitely. But I'm not saying that for sympathy. What I'm saying is, I think that's an interesting vibe that you can get from a club that wouldn't have that
We didn't feel welcome.
Correct.
We didn't
I
feel
think
like
that's fair to say.
And we felt like if we put one shot out of place, it was like, right, well, I'll just walk to the next tee box because I daren't look for a ball because I've been told not to hold anybody
And
out.
it's strange, isn't it? Because there was 2 balls, 4 balls, 3 balls. We were obviously playing as a 3.
With a bit of filming.
And in the nicest way, because there's a lot of half par holes, there's reachable par 4s, there's long par 3s, there's reachable par 5s. Then
only one par 5, isn't there? And it actually wasn't reachable.
was there only one par 5?
Yeah, was it the second?
Okay, I thought there was maybe more than that. Okay, you get where I'm going with it. That means the sequencing of shots means sometimes you need to have larger gaps and shorter gaps, and it was just congested. And I think that expectation on pace just wasn't realistic for the number of people that were putting out on a golf course, and that puts you just on the back foot, which I think traveling golfers need to know about, because that's a really important part of the round, is the experience you get, not the quality of the golf course always that you play. And I think you're right. You know, club wouldn't have wanted anyone to feel unwelcome, because that's definitely not how the club would see it. But
Yeah,
you know,
it's just
people's
a couple.
people, right?
It's just a couple of entitled individuals who spoil the impression and kind of give the club a bit of a bad reputation. It's something that I guess all golf clubs have to wrestle with. It was just annoying that, you know, we were there to kind of film the course and obviously in turn do this podcast on our trip, and it happened to us where we can't get that out of our head. You know, we can't sort of say, yeah, all right, we've got to just imagine what it was like if we didn't have that unfriendly welcome by sort of 3 or 4 people.
I think for you boys, though, I mean, I lost my head. I played like a complete donut that day because my head had gone. But you boys were playing really well. And if you've got a course that realistically, for all the par 3s, which obviously you can hit in one, and you could hit 5 or 6 of the par 4s in one, 280, you know, for various reasons. Or even if it was into wind for safety, you're not going to start spanking it when you're on the green. That's saying that there's going to be 12 holes where you need a complete clear hole before you can hit. But you need like 10, 15 minute breaks between tee times to afford that, because otherwise, and the ladies behind were lovely every time, because they caught us up most holes because we were still, they'd putt out while we're still waiting for the green to clear. So we chat to them and they were very lovely and they were understanding that we were waiting for the green. And in that sense, and after I came back, there were some members there, and it hammered it down with rain in the last few holes. And there were some members there under the shelter with their dogs, and I was chatting to them, and all those members were lovely, really, really lovely. And I'll remember that. It just takes one bad incident, I suppose, to skew your view on something completely. Which is a shame.
Something pretty dire happened in Kilspindie that day anyway. So anyone who goes back now will just see rubble. And
because the course is broken in half.
Kilspindie, for those who don't know, lies across Aberlady and is currently in the fetal position, rocking backwards and forwards, crying. So, I mean, there's a lot of talk out there about bringing courses to their knees. Bruce brought Kilspindie to its knees and then took the head off with an extremely sharp instrument and held it up, screaming in the middle of Aberlady town.
It was a Ned Stark beheading.
Are you not entertained? It was.
I just felt
you
wronged.
played great golf all tour. You played really good golf. I think we were saying before, probably a fistful over for 8 rounds in 5 days is pretty impressive going. Kilspindie was a massacre. Watching you walk from green to tee was like watching the Grim Reaper just sort of move against those dark clouds, particularly that were coming in on the back nine. You were just sort of there licking your chops in search of your next victim.
I just felt we'd been wronged by that welcome, so someone had to...
Well, that was when you had the confrontation with the guy. Bruce had just jammed it to about 15 feet off the tee on a par 4, I think about the 7th hole. And then just drops one from 15 feet. Eagle walks to the next. I think it was a 65, and I mean, you left a lot out there. Yeah.
so if that rain came in and made it, I don't know about you guys, I found it hard to grip the club when that rain came in, because as Malcolm, our host, said,
I don't know if it was rain or whether it was the tears of Kilspindie, because and by then the spine and vertebrae was fully severed.
But they called it wet rain though, didn't they? Because in literally about 10 minutes, we were fully soaked through. So it made scoring a bit tough.
Is that what it said? Wet rain? Is that what it was? Because
they call it wet rain over in Appalachia.
Stupidly, because this is all of Malcolm Duck's stuff about microclimates, which is always going to come back and bite us in the arse eventually. Like you said, we set off on the 15th tee, I think. Before we'd even got greenside, I was soaked.
Drenched, yeah.
But I would say you must watch the film when it drops about Kilspindie, because this spinal snap happened during an absolute gale. Like, it was blowing. This par 5 second, I mean, we all barely made it in 3. It was a gale.
I played good golf all day. I don't think you boys ever said good shot to me. I mean,
we did tilt, of course, didn't we? We did tilt. That's what I forgot about.
We were playing that
so we did tilt.
No,
I love that. I think that's what got me into it, because I stopped thinking.
Bruce, who shot 65 gross on tilt Stableford scoring, scored more points than he hit the ball 65 with a 66 tilt score.
Really? Yeah, I love that game. Only time I played
Mills
it,
was
I
out
absolutely
in 2
love it.
on tilt on the front 9 and then came back with about an 18 or 19. I think I played below my handicap. I played really good, and I think I notched up something like 42 points. 66 was it was a massacring of a golf course. And was it enjoyable to watch? Yeah, it was actually. It's the first time I've ever been out on course and really just enjoyed watching someone play that I'm playing with. Like I could have happily been on your bag there and I'd have had a good day. So
thanks, mate. It's very kind.
You absolutely mullered that thing around there. It was pretty special to watch.
But if we're allowed back, it'll be my turn to caddy for you around there.
Wouldn't have thought so.
But from Kilspindie, we hopped across to the oldest remaining golf course.
Musselburgh.
Yeah.
Muzzle.
Yeah. Some have been calling it Musselbrow, all
like you muzzle a dog.
And we were, because we were obviously very professional, and we sort of write down sketches of the narration of these clubs before we go and get a bit of background information. At one point, I thought Sam was going to spell it MUZZ, BROUGH, and I was just
my narration ties it into Jewish celebrations, whatever it is, Mazel Tov.
Yeah. But what a great way to end the trip, actually, when the sun came out.
What do we do? Hooked up with Sam Cooper, who's obviously on his adventure, his previous friend of the pod and still friend of the pod, actually, amazingly. Who's out doing all the links courses in Scotland. Hopped over, and he's a bit of a hickory hero, so he turns up with these
with his own full set.
Yeah, like they were nice.
They look really good. Like, when me and Mills both watched our 4-iron sail 20 yards, the head of the 4-iron sailed 20 yards into the distance, whilst we were kind of trying to hold the hickory shaft in a nice posed finish.
Lenguardia.
I thought, exactly. I thought, Sam's done well actually to get his own set here, because it's not a bad idea if you want to protect your ankles.
Fish glue. That's proper fish glue, that.
So hang on, let's rewind. So we decided we were going to play with hickories, right? Because it's the oldest standing golf course in the world.
It's where the first hole was cut.
Where the first hole was cut. Yeah. So the oldest
not the first hole was cut, I don't think. I think the first hole might have been cut. Was it Leith? But the first hole that was cut of the 4 1/4 inch size diameter hole that obviously the RNA standardised in 1893. That was that started at Musselburgh. So a lot of things there. Mrs. Foreman's at the back of the 4th green. That's the first halfway house in golf. A lot of people believe.
You've had many opens.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. It was part of the initial founding group of Prestwick and St Andrews that founded, the Open and helped fund the Claret Jug, obviously through the Honourable Company.
Was it a belt back then, or was it just a jug?
So the first 12 were played over the first 13 years, all at Prestwick.
Right.
But I think it was 1871, maybe I have to check the dates. They didn't play for it because that was when young Tom Morris had won it 3 years on the spin. And back in those days, if you won a tournament 3 times on the row, you were allowed to keep it. So the 3 clubs were arguing about how they were going to fund the next trophy and who should pay for it. So they actually didn't end up playing the event. And then the following year it was played. And then it was always rotated between St Andrews, Musselburgh and Prestwick. And obviously that's pretty much the still today some of the greatest ground to play golf in those.
But I think if we were being honest, Musselburgh wasn't our favourite course of the trip.
Oh, I think you've got to look at it. So I would challenge back a bit there and say you've got to go. You're playing, if you're going there and playing it as a visitor, you're playing it for a specific reason. If you're going there and expecting, Trump International or Royal Dornoch, then you are going to be disappointed in terms of the layout of the course, because that's not what it is. It is essentially the oldest golf course in the world. That's really, there's a lot of arguments around whether it is or isn't. It's essentially what you're playing, and it sits inside a very busy racetrack. That's a fully operating race course. 9 holes. If you play it with modern equipment, a lot of the layout is pretty obsolete because it's not particularly long.
Yeah,
you can probably carry all the bunkers.
Apart from the par threes were all mutant long. They
Yeah,
were like 240.
But playing it with hickories,
Half par.
it didn't actually become an exercise of score. I'm glad we did it.
Yeah.
I think once is probably enough, is what I would say.
Yeah,
I'm not
fair.
saying every time I'm going to go up to Scotland, I'm going to seek out Musselburgh to do the same thing again. But it actually whet my appetite for hickories as well, funnily enough.
I quite like just the hickories. I mean, you know how much of a nut I am with swing thoughts and the golf swing and technical stuff. I love just, getting a soft ball on a very small tee peg with a hickory driver and just being like, right, just try and make a smooth swing and hit
It was
it
nice
out,
feeling
hit it
when
out
you
the
got it,
center of the
wasn't it?
face. Oh, yeah.
Lovely
I
feeling.
felt like I drove it well. I just couldn't get the short game, right? Because
There's no lift on the ball.
yeah, and
there's no
so
spin.
there's no real
nothing.
spin. So like I was just, hitting anything from 120 yards to 30-yard shots miles over the back of the green just for fun on a regular basis.
Cooper once said to us, he's like, when we did the Evaluate Team pod, he said, you look at some of these courses and you're looking at some of these bunkers and you think, why is that there? It's just not in play. But it is in play when you play hickories, because you've got to, if you want to hold the green, you've got to land it 20, 30
It was
yards
the second
short.
or third hole. You boys were both right part of the fairway, I think, and you probably had something like, obviously we've got no lasers with us, but it's something like a 120-yard shot. Now the bunker's probably about 30, 40 yards short of the pin, but directly over it. And I think everyone there was just like, there's no way we can possibly take aim at the pin here, because
impossible.
They are exactly where I've got to land the ball. So I'm going to have to go left of that. And it was nice. I mean, a little bit scary. I mean, Bruce immediately jumped to, sort of, Christ, that could have been a problem on the 5th tee, which is another long par 3. It was about 180. So I thought, I can't hit my sort of like wood club I've got here. So I'm going to have to go to this cleek, which is basically like it really felt like it's got the loft of a 2 or 3 iron, but you could have spread butter on toast with it. Tried to hit it. I think I advanced it about 30 yards, sort of at right angles. And then you guys wound up yours, and both of them, the head came detached, didn't it? Before impact.
Yeah.
And Bruce just goes, I mean, Finley Clark nearly ended his whole golfing career with this here. That could have been a problem here, boys.
Yeah, it was a bit weird though, because I kind of got halfway down, guess subconsciously, and was like, this feels all right, and then all of a sudden it goes, and you're like, in the foot or so past impact, you've got 2 things to follow instead of just the ball, and you're like, what the hell's happened?
Very
now?
odd, because we both snapped exactly the same hole, and neither of us took a divot, and it must have broken on the way down. Yeah, but it's a very odd sensation halfway through the swing that the club changing weight.
Yeah,
it's very, very peculiar, because your body just has no idea how to react to that.
Yeah,
I was like,
it's a miracle we actually hit the ball. Really,
I still can't figure out how the club head, when it becomes detached from the club, still managed to find its way back to moving the golf ball. But
because it couldn't have come off like on impact with the ball, because the shot still would have probably flown okay. Bizarre.
I think I've got it on the camera. I think both of ours happen at impact with the ball. It's
right
not the
before.
ground. I think it's just at impact, because my ball skims along the ground forward. So I think mine snapped just before that. Yours, you get some loft on it, some loft on the ball.
Because it's only on the
club
face for a 400th of a second or something, isn't it?
Well, you can see on that little teaser film, whether it's up now or not by the time you've listened to this, but you can see it where it goes dum, 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 and it zooms in on the head gone there. And there was another good match, though, another one that went to the 9th.
You and I prevailed, didn't we?
Yeah, and then we went and played foursomes then for the 10th hole, which was a playoff.
In the dark.
In the dark again, which is a common theme. Do you know that was the only match was Renaissance that didn't
Didn't go down the
Didn't
last.
end on the 18th, which was another massacring, actually. And I know I've mentioned that a few times in the pod. But apart from that, some great clutch games, isn't there? And I'm just coming off there, handing the clubs back. Obviously, some heads missing. And he's sort of like, yeah, it happens all the time, guys. Glad you've enjoyed it. Yeah, look.
They've probably been brought. I think they were probably been fixed about a dozen times. That's why.
I think it's pretty common for Hickory clubs.
I'd go.
For them to
I'd
break.
100% go. So, yeah, being really honest, it's not a golf course that would particularly excite me. Is it a memorable experience? 100%. Is it an important moment? Is that place very important to the game we all love today? Definitely.
Yeah, and you know what? I would have loved to have gone into the old honourable
ground zero,
companies.
really, for a lot of things.
I'd love to have gone into the old honourable companies clubhouse, which sadly, you know, in the present environment isn't possible, but clearly steeped in history there. And I think in some sense it's a way to kind of complete your golfing education, really, isn't it? If you want to be a kind of stuffy, kind of woke enthusiast like we are.
No, it's
So
really cool.
best.
Really cool.
Go there, play Hickory Golf, have a look in the clubhouse.
And you feel
just-
like a beginner.
just
I felt
soak it
like a
in.
rank beginner of golf playing
Yeah.
that. After, we're all playing great golf really on tour. And then playing that, all of a sudden, I felt like a total beginner. I could not get... You were my partner, and you were like, Sam, just aim 50 yards right and carry on swinging like you are. We're going to be fine. I could not get this fucking thing to go straight. Like, I just know the concept of face control had just gone. Like, it wasn't in the vocab.
But I think with Musselburgh, if you'd have gone there without knowing any of the history, if I called a mate up that plays golf once a year and said, "Do you want to go play Musselburgh?" Like, he would have walked away having a dire experience. But I think to go there and fully appreciate it and to fully, it's a great experience to walk around there with hickories. You don't have to do it with hickories, but to go around there with hickories and feel like, okay, this was it. This is where it started.
Willie Park Senior around the corner.
David Brown.
David Brown won the Open there, was dragged off a roof when he was working on a house. Someone heard he could play golf. It was all circular, wasn't it? It was all sort of like full circle, having played Muirfield the day before and kind of knowing that the Honourable Company had moved from there because it had become overcrowded with all the other people playing there. And Willie Park Senior down the road. Then you play the fourth hole and you see Mrs. Foreman's, and that's where old Tom just basically said, "I'm getting absolutely booed by the local crowd here. I'm just going to go and sit in the pub." And you can imagine the hole was that we used today was cut there, and you're like, this is actually quite significant stuff. So you just got to keep that in the back of your mind.
The park's like a little sort of dynasty around there because you had Mungo Park who also won the Open there.
Yeah.
So they're an absolute dynasty around there, and you need to have at least a vein and interest in history if you're going to go enjoy around there, I think. But
it's only 20 minutes from East Lothian, and I think what we can definitely all agree on is that East Lothian is an absolutely fantastic place. We barely scratched the surface. But on that note,
unsung heroes for the trip. Sorry, Bruce. Before I finish, there was one unsung hero that I think kept us pretty comfy throughout. It was those bloody golf shoes.
Of course.
I'm a bloody convert to Echoes now.
The Echo shoes were good.
They were good, to be fair, weren't they? I think it'd be remiss not to mention.
Yeah, I've always been very critical of the style, but you definitely can't.
Aaron Rye's rung again. He still wants his shoes back.
They do look like some sort of heavy
duty
set kind of boots, but they're
he's
actually
wearing
not.
them now.
They're
He's
light.
wearing them
No, I
now.
know. Well, they're comfortable, aren't we? We're going to go maybe play a few holes after this, but they're just very, very comfortable. And I wore them 8 rounds on the spin.
Yeah.
8 rounds on the spin.
blisters,
I don't know
no
why you
push.
bowed out towards the end or something. Maybe they got a bit wet or
I
something.
think I had white
but-
chinos on around Kilspindie and it just didn't work
Just
for me
didn't-
having the
yeah,
grey
okay,
crap.
yeah.
I think I worked out.
Yeah, I
that
saw your ass and your fucking the back of your legs when they got wet. When they got wet through, when they got wet through, Kilspindie, and you were wearing white trousers. Thought, yeah,
Sense a
serves
little
you
bit of
right.
hostility there.
Well, I think I worked out that I'm sensing some hostility here, boys. I think I worked out that we did about 52 miles worth of golf course, and they served us well, those Echoes. So thank you for sending them.
Highlights of the trip. Then, if I had to narrow you down to 3 moments, rounds, courses, funny little incidents, what would they be? Tom,
Has it got to be moments or is it courses?
We can alternate around
moments,
top three.
courses, moments on the drive, interactions.
No, just got full fat cokes. Muirfield, I think was the number one course, and I think watching Robin pull out his phone just so he could explain to his wife later on about where he was hitting his second shot from on the 5th.
Yeah, that's a fair call.
was probably quite a humorous moment for me.
Yeah,
that was a fair call.
That long, that was quite cool to say. I've never seen anyone hit a drive this far down.
So one of my funniest moments was when we were in the Ducks Aberlady and James Woods just chuckling away to himself while we were doing the putting, and just looks up and goes, "You know what they call Muirfield round here, don't you?" "What's that, James?" "Gullane 4." And just the inane laughter over something that's pretty irrelevant, that I thought just chuckling away.
Yeah,
kind of for me,
camaraderie.
that just summed up like literally just a laugh right from start to finish. Yeah, I actually, to be fair, one of the more memorable moments for me was probably that game with Malcolm and the banter. So when we had an all-square finish going up 18, and he hit that dirty bottom groove shot in and took the rug from underneath our feet, and just some of the banter that was going on the back nine with kind of...
Oh, sorry, Abrora. Sorry,
yeah.
This is M squared, Malcolm Murray.
Yeah. Abrora, sorry, yeah. And yeah, that was just great fun. Andy, the club president, walking along, who do you fancy today, Andy? And he's like, yeah, to be honest, the 18th, you're not going to win that one because you got to play your golf here to know that one. And it was hilarious, wasn't he, when he was like, what's the name of the hole and all that sort of stuff.
Aim point shite.
Yeah, are you doing that aim point shite?
Getting accosted on the 7th tee at Kilspindie was quite a moment, and I think it's quite funny. I think I'll remember that.
To be fair, he would have decked you as well.
He would have killed
He was a big
me.
lad.
The guy was huge.
Bruce was like, I think
if Bruce wasn't taking on 120 acres of Kilspindie and trying to sever the spine, he'd have probably been able to weigh in on the battle at the
Bruce
time.
would have had to take the arms. You'd have to be on the legs, and I still don't think we would have done a job.
Like, he'd have walked through us like.
No, that was quite humorous.
And to be fair, I mean, if those women hadn't have heckled us along on the 12th at Gullane, I don't think we'd have had anywhere near the fun with the.
You're going way too slow.
Yeah. Excuse me, 2.5 hours to play 15 holes here. It was actually less than that. Sorry, that's complete exaggeration. It was less than that. Probably an hour and 50 through that point.
It would be remiss not to mention you boys on the last day after playing Kilspindie, getting a soak in, going back to the Ducks Inn because we had to get dry off. And all you two kept talking about was, should we just go up to the top of town? Just go up to Gullane, that place where we got the sandwiches yesterday. It's brilliant.
The Goose Green or whatever.
Yeah, we'll get some Cajun chicken wraps. They were so good.
They were good.
All I heard for about 20 minutes. Like, lads, let's just go to Musselburgh. Let's get our stuff done. Let's get ourselves ready. We're meeting Cooper over there. No, got to go and find these things. So then you just got in a car and instead just drove to Long Nidri. Like Malcolm had said, there's a sandwich shop there. I don't know whether this was the obsession with sandwiches of 5 days on a sandwich-related diet, but you were like clucking for a sandwich. So you just drove to Long Nidri. With
Took a wrong turn, actually.
Well, you had no idea where you were going, did you? He just said it's in Long Nidri. So you just took it upon yourselves to go off in search. So I'm now following Malcolm. I've parked the bloody car up on my own, which is your car, which has got everything in. And then I'm like stressed out to the max. And you boys like eventually rock up after driving around Long Nidri for about half an hour. And you're like, oh yeah, the car's been broken into. Bruce is pretending to ring the bloody police. And I was like...
But you'd left the boot open. You'd left the boot open.
Gear,
and you were like, it's all gone. And I was like, oh shit, I've wrecked the trip. I could have broken down in tears right there.
You went, but I locked it. It couldn't have been. I locked it.
So yeah, in terms of tour scores on who was... who we really got hook, line and sinker. Sam, we got him twice.
Yeah, 2 hours.
Mills didn't get him at all, and you didn't get me at all. But we got a couple of moments of enjoyment there.
Yeah,
but I think we've waxed fairly lyrical about this whole trip, and hopefully soon, over the next sometime between now and February, we're kind of having a slow release of all these films. So we need to get West Lancs out of the way. So West Lancs is coming Thursday. So West Lancs will be released on Thursday, and then every 2 weeks we're going to be dropping a different tour film. So
we're going to be dropping content every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks there will be
Maybe
a film.
Drop 2 on the first week?
No, we're going to... I said to Tom, we just get them all. I think we're going to drop them all in a weekend. Every 3 hours.
Sat straight with the content.
Just every 3 hours, and watch the viewer numbers plummet. So please do go online and watch some of these things, because we're quite proud of them, and we had a great fun on this tour. And thank you again for everyone that's helped us, for Echo for providing the shoes, and for Scotland Home of Golf, who are now Scotland, where golf began, for providing us with the accommodation.
Shout out to Jamie Darling for doing it.
Jamie
Such a fantastic
Darling,
job in setting us up at these courses, and of course Malcolm Duck too.
The Duck.
For providing such a great base and enjoyable experience in East Lothian, Aberlady.
Yeah, it was brilliant. So if you've got any comments on anything we've talked about, or if you think we're just talking utter tripe, please do get in touch at Cookie Jar Golf. And until then, we will see you next time.
Watch this.